for decades. However, the problem has become particularly acute over the last few years. One of the ways that economists measure the productivity of a country is the amount of contribution per worker per hour. Canada is amongst the lowest in the OECD countries amongst our peers. We are at $50 per hour per worker. Contrast that to the United States, Switzerland, Ireland, all of which are considerably above.
We'll have 6 minutes the next time that this matter is before the House. Statements by members, déclaration de députés. The honourable member for London Fanshawe.
Yesterday in London, I stood with hundreds of my neighbors, friends, and community members to remember the lost members of the Afzal family, Salman, Talat, Madiha, and Yumna. The young Muslim leaders spoke about the change they need to see from us. They are charging us to act. We have become accustomed to memorializing the losses of men killed in prayer, of women killed crossing the street because they are wearing the hijab, of children killed because we refuse to let go of our biases, our insecurities, and our fears. We have a responsibility to do better. Islamophobia is structural, and we must review the structures that put our community in harm's way to stop the violence, the microaggressions, the hate. We must take a stand against the dehumanization of Muslims, of all those who are targeted because of their religion, the color of their skin, what they wear, their culture, their language, their sexuality, their gender. This is our only path forward. This is a time for courage, for human rights, and for love. This is a time for action.
The honourable member for Simcoe North. Let's see. The honourable member for Nepean.
Many Canadians are working in support of the human rights of the Palestinian people and for the peaceful resolution of the issues. I would like to recognize and thank Burhan Sharauri, Jamal Hamid, Dr. Habib Khoury, Rula Sherida of Association of the Palestinian Arab Canadians, Thomas Woodley of CJPME, Councillor Yusuf Barakat of Canada Arab Forum of British Columbia, Rashid Salah and Nabil Nasser of the Arab Palestinian Association of Ontario, Corey Balsam of the Independent Jewish Voices Canada, Dr. Mahmoud Abu Awad and Dr. Tariq Khalifa of Canadian Palestinian Professional Association, Musa Zaidan of the Coalition of Canadian Palestinian Organization. I once again call for Canada to recognize the sovereign state of Palestine. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Thérèse de Blainville.
The honourable member for Thérèse de Blainville. Mr. Speaker, I rise to speak about the Quebec Week for Persons with Disabilities from the 1st to 7th of June. The theme is contributing fully. In Quebec, more than 1 million people have a significant and ongoing disability. That's 16% of the over 15 population. These people want to contribute fully to society, and they can, at school, at work, in arts and culture, and so on. People with disabilities need to have the opportunity to develop their full potential. That's why it's important to give them all the necessary tools, to give them an accessible and inclusive environment. I'd like to congratulate all organizations that are working hard and have been for years to build a more inclusive world. Thank you. The honourable member for Glengarry Prescott Russell. Mr. Speaker, on May 21st, several communities in Glengarry Prescott Russell suffered major impacts of severe storms. I spoke with several families after the storms. Trees falling on houses, destroyed roofs, crumbling silos, multi-generational farms destroyed, as well as businesses. Despite all of that, I would like to underscore the courage shown by citizens. I'd like to thank everyone who helped out their neighbors.
It's all about, Mr. Speaker, in times of crisis, neighbors helping neighbors strengthen that sense of community. Thank you to the first responders, the hydro crews, volunteers, farmers who took their neighbor's animal to care for them, and everyone who pitched in Your commitment to your community did not go unnoticed. Thank you so much.
The honourable member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Inform the House that this past Friday, June the 3rd, under an expansive Manitoba sky with the sun beaming down on family and friends, our colleague and my dear friend, the member for Kenora, declared "I do" to Miss Danica Howden. A stunning bride and an even more beautiful person. Now, I'm also relieved to inform the House that despite his many obvious flaws, Danica replied with an "I do" as well. I was honored to be asked by the member for Kenora and Danica to officiate the ceremony, and so it was particularly special and a bit tearful for me when I was able to pronounce these two amazing people, husband and wife. At the reception following the ceremony, there were a number of speeches, including remarks delivered by the member for Stormont Dundas South Glengarry, that left the guests and the happy couple in stitches. Sheldon and Crystal Howden, Joe and Charlene Melillo all beamed proudly with joy as they welcomed each couple into their families. It was a wonderful day to launch these two on their lifelong adventure, soon to be filled with many little Melillos. And so I ask you, Mr. Speaker, and this House to join me in congratulating two very special people, the member and Mrs. for Kenora. Thank you.
The honourable member for Scarborough Rouge Park.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to honor the Afzal family, Salman, Madiha, Yamna, and Talat, whose lives were taken away by a cruel act of terrorism motivated by Islamophobia. The lives of Fayaz Afzal, whose parents, sister, and grandmother were killed, and the close-knit Muslim community in London, Ontario, were forever changed. Today, as Canada marks the first anniversary of this tragedy, I want to recognize the relentless work of the National Council of Canadian Muslims who are on the Hill to advocate for greater action on Islamophobia. Because of their advocacy, we announced the creation of a special representative on combating Islamophobia. NCCM is calling on us to do more to address violence and hate motivated by Islamophobia in every corner of Canada. To the Muslim community, we are here for you. Let us double down and fight Islamophobia in all of its forms and work towards a Canada that is fair, inclusive, and just for all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Simcoe North.
Mr. Speaker, the first printed recipe for butter tarts was published in the Women's Auxiliary of the Royal Victoria Hospital Cookbook in 1900 in Barrie, Ontario. Today there are hundreds of varieties and infinite butter tart possibilities. There are 1,000,001 ways to make and eat a butter tart, but just one truly great place to enjoy them. That's at Canada's Best Butter Tart Festival in beautiful Simcoe North, town of Midland, Ontario. As Canadians get back to our lives, our friends, and communities, this sugary extravaganza is back on June 11th with more than 200 professional and home-based bakers projected to serve up to 200,000 delicious Canuck delicacies in a single day. The town of Midland comes alive with tens of thousands of people visiting to seek this ultimate butter tart experience. Mr. Speaker, I wish to invite everyone to Simcoe North, 90 minutes north of the GTA, this Saturday, June 11th, to celebrate Ontario's Best Butter Tart Festival with us, the epicenter of Canada's sweetest treasure. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is an honour for me today to recognize and congratulate an important educator and historian of Labrador, Patty Way, on being awarded an honorary degree, Doctor of Laws from Memorial University. She was born in Labrador, attended Yale School in Northwest River in a residential school system, and then attended Memorial University, where she received a Bachelor of Education and a Bachelor of Arts. Patty has been an educator and historian for more than 50 years, establishing the groundwork for comprehensive genealogies for many in southern, central, and northern Labrador. Building on existing knowledge and oral tradition, Patty interviewed hundreds of elders and knowledge holders, pored over archival records, and used any available means to piece together their stories previously unknown. She has made it her life's work to help people and communities learn and understand the branches that make up their Indigenous and settler family history. I ask my colleagues today to join me in extending congratulations to now Dr. Patty Way for this recognition, as it is well deserved.
The honourable member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Bravo. Mr. Speaker, a year ago today, 5 members of the Afzal family, out for an evening stroll in London, were struck at high speed and with deliberate malice by a pickup truck. 4 family members were killed. Only the youngest child, then age 9, survived. As the suspect's trial has not taken place, we cannot know with certainty whether he was motivated primarily by racial hatred, by religious hatred, or by some combination of the two. Now, you'll notice that I don't name the suspect. Those who commit the worst crimes should not be remembered by name. Depriving them of notoriety is one of the few tools we have to incentivize other individuals who might consider becoming copycats. It is the 4 members of the Afzal family, Talmat, Salman, Madiha, and 15-year-old Yumna, who must not be forgotten. This is not the worst act of anti-Muslim violence in Canada. That melancholy label applies to the 2017 shooting at the Centre Islamique de Québec. But we now know that the events of 2017 were not unique, and that therefore we must always remain vigilant, all of us, on behalf of Canada's 1.4 million Muslims. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Newmarket, Aurora.
Mr. Speaker, this month, Roadhouse and Rose Funeral Home on Main Street South in Newmarket is celebrating 180 years of business. Locally owned and operated since 1842, Roadhouse and Rose holds the title of the oldest business in Newmarket and the 3rd oldest funeral home in Ontario. A staple in our community, Roadhouse and Rose has been an established business since before Confederation and has watched Newmarket grow from a population of just 600 to now 88,000. Mr. Speaker, I want to acknowledge Glenn, Jackie, and Wes Plater for their many years of service. Not only have they provided our community with professional, compassionate service during our darkest hours, but they've been important community partners supporting many initiatives that make Newmarket even better. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, no one works harder for conservation than hunters, anglers, and trappers. It's their passion and their chosen duty. Today in Ottawa, I am pleased to be meeting with men and women who have given their time, talent, and energy in these pursuits. These amazing stewards of the outdoors are focused on ensuring the outdoor way of life is here for generations to enjoy. Their goal is a future that includes healthy rivers, lakes, and forests, bountiful fish and wildlife, and opportunities for all Canadians to share the passion for sustainable hunting, fishing, and conservation. They work tirelessly on wildlife management projects such as habitat restoration and enhancement. They do this with smiles on their faces because they know the work is important for the health of our fish and wildlife populations. I am proud to consider them friends, and I thank them for their work. I will end with this message to them. May your lines always be tight and your aim always true.
The honourable member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, on September 1st, 1939, the Chaudière Regiment was mobilized and deployed at the beginning of the Second World War. Nearly 5 years later, more than 900 members of the legendary regiment landed at Normandy in order to free Europe from the Nazi yoke. The Chaudière Regiment was the only Francophone regiment that participated in the landing operations. Every year, we pay tribute to these soldiers who lost their lives on a sacred site, the Juno Beach Center, which is a commemorative museum. As a member and former commander of the regiment, I rise in this House to ensure that we do something to protect this space for commemoration in order to honor the memory of our soldiers who died in combat. The government must do something. A real estate project is threatening the Juno Beach Center, which is disrespectful to the memory of our fighters. I believe that the Prime Minister understands the importance of the center. We must protect the memory of those who gave their lives for us on June 6, 1944. Aere Perennius.
L'honorable député d'Hochelaga.
The honourable member for Hochelaga. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After the 1973 coup, thousands of Chileans left and came to Canada. For the first time, the Canadian government issued ministerial certificates. And after that crisis, the government amended the Immigration Act to include the category of political refugees. At a time when social media did not yet exist, the Chilean community was still able to organize and played an important role in raising awareness internationally about the dictatorship in Chile. And the Chilean-Canadian community is still just as engaged and active in their communities. Many Chileans stayed in Canada after their country returned to democracy and have deep roots in Canadian soil. They have been able to contribute to the vitality of Canadian culture while also preserving their culture language. I'd like to welcome President Boric. He was recently elected as the head of a government which promises a more progressive, feminist, and inclusive future. Thank you.
For North Island, Powell River.
D-Day and the Battle of Normandy. Just several weeks ago, I stood on Juno Beach and looked out at the sand and the water and wondered at the incredible bravery of those Canadians who fought. In the museum, I was moved to hear the voices of Canadians, but what made me stop cold, though, was when I stood below a screen that continuously scrolls through the 45,000 members of Canada who were killed in the Second World War. Mr. Speaker, if you were to read every single name, you would have to stand in that spot for 13 and a half hours. So many Canadians made the ultimate sacrifice. This year is particularly poignant for my riding of North Island Powell River, as we recently lost World War II veteran James Francis Stocky Edwards, who would have been 101 yesterday, Mr. Speaker. The day after his 23rd birthday, he flew his Spitfire over the beaches of Normandy on D-Day and was a proud Canadian for the depth of his service. As Canadians, we must never, ever forget their sacrifice, then, today, or forever. Thank you.
L'honorable député de Drummond.
The honourable member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, yesterday was the 24th Quebec Cinema Gala, with many awards for some of the most deserving artists who worked on Quebec films this year. First of all, the big winner was Les Oiseaux Ivres, with 10 awards, including Best Film for producers Luc Derry and Kim McGraw, as well as Best Screenplay for Ivan Gerbovich and Sarah Michara, who got awards for camera work and for being the director, as well as prizes for Hélène Florent and Claude Legault. There were also other films that were notable, such as Maria Chadelaine, L'Arracheuse de Temps, and Comme une Vague. And beyond the artists, the very fact that Quebec cinema exists is something to celebrate. It's an entire industry that exists to tell our stories to us and to the entire world. It is a source of inspiration for the future. I'd like to congratulate the winners. And I'd like to thank the entire big family of Quebec cinema.
Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Speaker, it is with great sadness I rise in this House today on the anniversary of the Afzal family massacre. On June 6, 2021, Yamna Afzal, her parents, Medima Zamel, and Salman Afzal, and her grandmother, Talat Afzal, were out of their Sunday walk when they were killed by a vehicle jumping the curb. One man made a decision to end the lives of 4 innocent people simply because of their faith. Mr. Speaker, there are not enough words to describe the hateful, deliberate, and discriminatory motive between this attack. We live in a country that promotes diversity, culture, and inclusion, yet Muslims across the country walk the streets of Canadian cities daily, afraid that they might be attacked because of their faith. My thoughts and prayers are with the Afzal family, the London community, and all Muslims in Canada and across the world. Our job is to ensure safety and protection for all. We need concrete solutions that will fight hate and discrimination and ensure that everyone feels safe in our country. Mr. Speaker, I pledge to do my part. Thank you.
The honourable member for Vancouver, Grenville.
Mr. Speaker, 1 year ago today, Madia and Salman Afzal, their daughter Yumna, and her grandmother Talat were brutally murdered in London, Ontario. They were killed for one reason. They were Muslim. 9-year-old Fayez Afzal, in the blink of an eye, became an orphan, lost his sister and his grandmother. Their murder shook us to our core and united Canadians in our grief. For Muslims across Canada, in the Afzals, we saw our own families, because the Afzals were our family, and they could have been any of us. Many of us asked, how could this happen in Canada? Because, Mr. Speaker, we are not immune to the hate of those that fear difference or refuse to see our common humanity. So it's up to us, all of us, to keep the promise we made a year ago, to defeat Islamophobia by building a Canada where we all belong. Today we remember Salman, Madiha, Yumna, Talat. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi rajiun. Indeed, to Allah we belong, and to Allah we shall return. May the souls of our London family rest in eternal peace.
Oral questions. Question orale, l'honorable.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, today is no longer a time for memorized press lines. The news is growingly concerning. We have learned that a quarter of Canadians are not eating enough because they just can't afford to pay for their food. Stats Canada reports that the price of food has risen by almost 10% in 1 year. We haven't seen this since 1981. Why aren't the Prime Minister and his ministers doing anything to help them? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. That's not true, Mr. Speaker. Our budget includes a range of measures in order to reduce the cost of living. Dental care, a one-time payment of $500 for persons with difficulty accessing housing. We're also helping people buy their first home. And there's a tax credit for multi-generational house renovations. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. That can't be serious, Mr. Speaker. She's answering with dental care, a tax credit to buy a house. That's what the Liberal solution is to the affordability crisis that food banks are facing. In a region like mine, they have seen a 10% increase in demands on food banks since last year. These are people that can't pay for food. In many regions, they've seen an increase by nearly 25%. When demands on banks are rising faster than inflation, there's a serious issue here in Canada. Can the minister come down from her budget cloud and explain to food banks how come they can't get through the month? Mr. Speaker, we understand full well that the cost of living is a key issue for Canadian families, and this is why we have created an indexed fund so that a single mother with 2 children can receive up to $13,600 with the Canada Child Benefit. We're looking at a 10% increase here, and we're taking care of our young people. And students will be able to save more than $3,000 thanks to our plan. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, I can't believe what I'm hearing from the Minister of Finance for Canada. The minister doesn't realize how much people are having a hard time making ends meet and putting food on the table. Everything costs more. And the minister's telling us that they're only going to help single mothers with kids that are having a hard time. All Canadians, all workers, some people are having a hard time paying for gas to go to work. Many young people only earn $25,000 a year and they're not eating enough. How come when other governments are taking action, the Liberals are doing nothing? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, we have no lessons to learn from the Conservatives with respect to helping Canadians who are most vulnerable and the cost of living. In 2015, when we took power, 5 million, roughly 5 million Canadians were living under the poverty line. Last year, the last year for which we have figures, this figure fell to 3,750,000.
Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the national average gas price was $2.06 a litre, with expectations it will jump again this week. Canadians are struggling and are looking for help. Conservatives have proposed temporarily cutting the GST at the pumps. The Prime Minister has said that Canadians should just go buy an electric car. Do the Spend EP Liberals really believe that this is a credible answer for commuters who can't afford to fill their tanks, let alone pay for their grocery bills? Or when it comes ideas on how to keep life affordable for Canadians, is this government just running on fumes?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As my honourable colleague knows, President Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine has driven up gas prices around the world. While Canada's energy supply remains secure, we are working with our international allies to preserve energy value chains and to actually reduce pricing globally. Here in Canada, we've asked the Competition Bureau to monitor the situation to ensure there's no illegal conclusion. We're certainly working to ensure that we're enhancing affordability through various programs the government has put into place and working internationally to stabilize global energy prices.
The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, since I asked about gas prices and leadership last week, the average price of gas has jumped 11 cents. Now, the Americans, the British, and even the Germans have lowered gas prices to protect their consumers. They didn't talk, they acted. But this Prime Minister has lost the plot. Does this actor-turned-Prime Minister understand that the only leadership he's shown in the G7 is to raise gas prices? Can someone in the Prime Minister's office recast him in the next act to a reformed Prime Minister who takes action on gas prices, or will he remain true to character and keep making it worse?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As my honourable colleague is fully aware, the illegal invasion of Ukraine has driven up gas prices around the world. Canada is working with its international partners to address the issues around energy security and the pricing with respect to hydrocarbon fuels. And in fact, we have committed to increasing oil and gas production by 300,000.
I'm just going to interrupt the Honourable Minister. I'm trying to hear what he's saying, but it's just getting kind of loud, and it's early in the session. So I just want to remind everyone that the Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola, asked a question. I'm sure he wants to hear the answer. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate that. Certainly, we continue to be focused with our international partners on working to stabilize global energy prices. We have increased production and are in the process of increasing production and supply of 300,000 barrels a day by the end of the year to help to address the global crisis with respect to energy. And here, with respect to affordability, we are doing enormous work through a range of different programs to put money back in the pocket.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, last year, Montreal and Laval broke a record for unfounded 911 calls for shootings. People called 893 times because they thought they heard gunshots. 893 times. That's 2.5 calls per day. Why? Because people are afraid, Mr. Speaker. They fear when they hear a jackhammer or a fender bender, and they fear for the safety of their families. This is a real scourge. We don't want to know what the federal government is doing to ban legal weapons. We want to know what they're doing to act against illegal guns and criminal gangs. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I agree entirely with my colleague. This is unacceptable. He has explained. This is exactly why the reason we have introduced legislation, and I hope the Bloc will cooperate with the government to adapt this legislation as quickly as possible. That is one of the concrete measures that we can use to protect our communities. Thank you. The Honourable Member for La Prairie, Mr. Speaker. Everything the Minister has just said, well, here's what the former Montreal police detective sergeant said on Saturday. It will not change anything in the field because the wrong people are being targeted by this bill. Mr. Speaker, it is not legal gun owners who are shooting everywhere. It is organized crime. To solve this problem, there is 2 things the government must do. First, tighten the borders against gun trafficking, and 2, create a registry of criminal organizations. This is urgent. When will the government finally end the rhetoric and go after organized crime? Mr. Speaker, Bill C-21 does tackle organized crime with concrete measures. For example, to increase sanctions on criminals who illegally traffic guns at the border. It'll give more authority to police forces to prevent violence, gun violence. And these are some of the measures that we can take in cooperation with the Bloc, but we have to study this bill, we have to debate it, and we have to adopt it as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Member for Burnaby South.
Mr. Speaker, today marks the first-year anniversary of the horrific attack in London where the Afzal family was killed. This was clearly an act of Islamophobia, and a year later, Muslim community members are wondering what's been done to make them safer in Canada. A year later, there has not been any concrete steps taken by this Liberal government. In fact, there's no law proposed to tackle online hate. There's no special representative named to deal with Islamophobia. And the neo-Nazi group linked with this attack has yet to be dismantled. So when will the Prime Minister take real steps to make sure the Muslim community is safer in Canada?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, first, I hope all members will join today in grieving with the Muslim community in London who marks this first anniversary of the loss that has been experienced by them. There is no way in which we can sufficiently convey our grievance and the sense of anguish and loss that they've had to experience. Our government is taking concrete steps, but first and foremost, we must begin by condemning Islamophobia in all of its forms. That is something that I know that every single member, I certainly hope in this chamber, will join me in, and taking the concrete steps that my honourable colleague across the way has suggested as well. Thank you.
Member for Burnaby South.
Today is the first anniversary of the London attack, an attack that killed members of the Afzal family. This was an Islamophobic attack, and the government has done nothing really to support the Muslim community in Canada. It did not propose legislation to tackle online hate or dismantle the neo-Nazi group related to this attack. When will this government take concrete measures to tackle Islamophobia? The Honourable Minister.
The Honourable Member for his question. We've taken a number of important steps in collaboration and conjunction with the Muslim community in Canada, including holding the first ever National Summit on Islamophobia, dedicating January 29th as the National Day of Remembrance and Action Against Islamophobia. We've committed as a government to appoint a special representative to combat Islamophobia, and we are the first government to put together a national action plan to combat hate as part of our broader anti-racism strategy, but most importantly, it's also working with Muslim Canadians and funding those on the ground who are fighting Islamophobia every single day.
The Honourable Member for Simcoe North.
Mr. Speaker, what do the Federal Reserve, President Biden, Treasury Secretary Yellen, and the Bank of Canada all have in common? They've all taken responsibility for underestimating inflation. Secretary Yellen said she was wrong about inflation, and President Biden released a plan to fight inflation just last week. So, Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Finance, where's this government's plan to provide immediate relief to Canadians and combat inflation?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, do you know what all of those countries have in common? In all of those countries, the rate of inflation is higher than it is in Canada. In Canada, the latest inflation number was 6.8%. In the U.S., 8.3%. In the U.K., 9%. In Germany, 8.7%. The OECD average is 8.8%, Mr. Speaker. That's what they have in common, and that's how they're different from us.
The Honourable Member for Simcoe North.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. All those countries measure inflation differently, and perhaps it would have hurt this government to admit just a little bit of humility instead of being blinded by ideology and recognize that the facts on the grounds have changed, and it needs to change course to provide immediate relief to Canadians. We've heard time and time again that this government is providing zero relief and actually defending high gas prices. Despite a windfall of revenues, this government refuses to take immediate action. Why?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, you know who should have a little bit of humility when talking about central banks? A member of a party where a candidate for the highest office has impugned the independence of the central bank, which is one of the key institutions in Canada, and Canada's strong institutional...
I'm going to have to interrupt the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. I'm having a hard time hearing today. Maybe it's my age, but I think it's more the voice in this place that is really getting echoey and quite loud, and it's almost like a murmur that kind of has a crescendo to it. And I'm not trying to direct an orchestra here. Please keep it down. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, please proceed.
Yeah, so we were talking about humility, and I was pointing out that members of a party in which a leading voice is impugning the independence of the Bank of Canada precisely at the moment when our economy needs a strong, independent, and well-respected central bank, that is a person who should demonstrate some humility.
The Honourable Member for South Surrey, White Rock.
Mr. Speaker, gas prices in my riding are $2.35 per litre. Drivers and transport of goods and services are all hurting. Huge diesel costs mean that it costs more for stores to get product, and already desperate Canadians pay more and more for groceries and essentials. We are elected to serve, to support Canadians, not make life so impossible that their already fragile mental health may collapse. There are common sense answers that this government ignores. When will this Prime Minister give Canadians a break and get rid of ever-rising carbon taxes?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Certainly the issue of energy security and energy affordability are top of mind for Canadians, but for people in many countries around the world. We are working in partnership with the United States, with Europe, and with others to ensure that we are increasing production to address the supply issue that is confronting the world right now. We are doing so in a manner that will help us to stabilize energy prices for the long term. That is the commitment that we've made to Canadians, and it's a commitment we're going to deliver on.
Member for South Surrey, White Rock.
Mr. Speaker, inflation, stagnation, frustration, these are common everyday kitchen table words now in Canada. Inflation means higher costs of production for all food. For farmers and producers, as their costs go up, they can't continue to absorb these losses. Consumers are stressed. Everyone loses. Food banks are overwhelmed, and 1 out of 5 Canadians report going hungry at night. When is this government going to get serious, help Canadians, and get Canada-created inflation under control?
Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians understand very well that inflation is a global phenomenon driven today very much by Vladimir Putin's illegal war in Ukraine. But our government understands that the cost of living is a challenge for Canadians, and that's why we're taking concrete steps. Let me name a few of them. A $500 payment to those facing housing affordability challenges. Dental care for Canadian families. Doubling support provided through the first-time home buyers tax credit. A multi-generational home renovation tax credit, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Miramichi Grand Lake.
Mr. Speaker, pain at the pumps is a reality across Canada, including in my riding. As Canadian gas prices soar to record highs, Putin fuels his war by selling Russian energy to the Democratic West. Yet this Liberal Prime Minister and the New Brunswick Liberal MPs are doubling down on a failed climate agenda that has not met a single emission target. Will the Prime Minister admit the carbon tax has failed and give Canadians a break at the pumps?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to remind my honourable colleague that according to the Parliamentary Budget Officer, 8 out of 10 Canadians are better off with carbon pricing. They receive more money from carbon pricing, and emissions are going down, Mr. Speaker. Look at the 2019 inventory, 2020 inventory. Emissions are going down. Our plan to fight climate change is working. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Miramichi Grand Lake.
Scale the wall, my friend. Mr. Speaker, Without pulling up to a pump and paying for the gas himself, the Prime Minister is utterly out of touch with the struggles Canadians are faced with. With the affluent means available to him, the Prime Minister truly doesn't understand that struggling mothers are having to choose between nutritious food or fueling the family vehicle to get to work. Will the Prime Minister finally admit today that his economic policies are what is driving up the cost of fuel and food across this country?
Honourable Minister of Families.
Mr. Speaker, that member knows very well that in his province of New Brunswick, we have now reduced childcare fees by 50% thanks to...
What a great idea.
In fact, that means hundreds of dollars each month in the pockets of the mothers that he is talking about. When it comes to the Canada Child's Benefit, for a single mom, that could mean almost $7,000 a year. Mr. Speaker, that's real money for families that need it when it comes to the high cost of living. We have been there since 2015 and will continue to be there for them every step of the way.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What a great answer.
L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Repentigny. We now know, Mr. Speaker, that when the minister talked about 300 million barrels of oil from Baie du Nord, it was not true. This was only put forward to calm things down, but there was never any question about limiting this project to 300 million barrels. In fact, they've already announced that the figure would rise to a minimum of 500 million. And what's worse, the Department of Environment says the environmental assessment is not based on the amount of oil this project is supposed to produce. Did the minister know that the Baie du Nord would produce far more than the 300 million barrels announced? The Minister of the Environment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for her question and her support on this important issue for the Baie du Nord project, which is subject to an independent environmental assessment. We did make a recommendation in favour of it. And for the first time in the history of Canada, the project will be net zero in 2050, and the project will also have to be under the ceiling for GHGs, which is whether it's 300 or 500 million barrels, it will be net zero by 2050. The honourable member for Repentigny. The quantity of oil is not a factor for this minister, as if it were a secondary factor in the minister's decision, as if it were a negligible factor in GHG emissions. While the IPCC warns us that we're heading towards a climate catastrophe, Canada approves the extraction of 1 billion barrels of oil because we must stop pretending that it'll be less than that, Mr. Speaker. We're not fooled. How can someone who calls himself an environmental activist approve such a project? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, how can I? Because we did give Baie du Nord the green light, and we refused an oil sands project that would have created 10 times more GHGs. We established a ceiling for emissions, and we want to reduce methane emissions by 40 to 45%. And there are no other countries worldwide that have established such important measures. We even went up to the Supreme Court, including other provinces. The honourable member for Avignon-Lamatis-Matane. Mr. Speaker, environmental groups are outraged, and they're right to be so. Greenpeace says it's completely absurd to have a project go ahead without having a real picture of how catastrophic it'll be. The Sierra Club adds, these estimates are alarming for our climate and show the absurdity of the environmental assessment. But it's not just environmental groups that the minister is turning his back on, it's the entire planet. He knows that the more oil that is extracted from Baie du Nord, the more GHGs it will produce. Knowing this, why did he say yes to Baie du Nord? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind my honourable colleague that before the pandemic, oil production increased by 700,000 barrels in Canada. It's 2.5 times that of Baie du Nord. But we did decrease this in 2019. Why? Because we're attacking pollution. And that's same, for electricity. we're reducing emissions considerably, and that's how we're going to work towards our targets for 2030 and 2050.
For Brantford, Brant.
Mr. Speaker, today marks the one-year anniversary of a deadly attack on a Muslim family in London. 4 members of the Afzal family were deliberately hit and killed by a truck during an innocent evening walk. A spokesperson for the family rightfully criticized the federal government for its lack of action and hollow promises to prevent similar attacks in the future. Mr. Speaker, this is a serious offense. Will the Prime Minister ensure that this murderer receives a serious sentence?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, serious offenses in this country are always punished with serious offenses. That's why we're moving forward, Mr. Speaker, to increase penalties for certain gun infractions, Mr. Speaker, as Bill C-21 proposes. But, Mr. Speaker, we're also making sure that we attack systemic discrimination within our criminal justice system so that Indigenous Canadians, Black Canadians, are not overrepresented in that system.
Honourable Member for Brantford, Brant.
More words, no action. Mr. Speaker, contrary to the government's claim, Bill C-21 is not about getting tough on crime, and it is not targeted at the gang members who are shooting up our streets. On the one hand, the Liberals try to increase the maximum penalty, but yet they push eliminating mandatory minimum sentences for a number of serious gun crimes under Bill C-5. And let's not forget last year they voted down our Conservative bill that proposed making the punishment harder for criminals using smuggled guns. Shameful. When will the Prime Minister put rights of victims first and commit to ending his soft on crime agenda?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I genuinely hope that my honourable colleague and all Conservatives will read very carefully Bill C-21, which takes organised crime head-on by raising maximum sentences against organised criminals who would traffic across our borders, by giving police additional wiretap authorities to prevent gun crime from occurring in the first place. So I would encourage my honourable colleague to vote for C-21. And by the way, he should also vote for fighting against Islamophobia the next time there's a motion on the floor of this House of Commons. That's the kind of solidarity that we need to show for the Muslim community, especially today.
The Honourable Member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this minister knows full well that Bill C-21 does nothing to tackle gangs and organized crime. This Liberal government, it's no surprise because this Liberal government always fails to get tough on hardened criminals. Under Bill C-5, they are removing mandatory minimum sentences for violent crimes committed with firearms. And in a recent Access to Information response, it was revealed that this Liberal government cut funding to combat gun and gang violence by more than half, failing to spend over $150 million targeted to fight crime. Why is this government reducing sentences for violent criminals and slashing funding for fighting crime?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it is the height of irony to hear an honourable colleague representing the Conservative Party of Canada talk about law and order when they put forward an agenda that has been repeatedly struck down by the Supreme Court of Canada in failed MMPs. When they cut nearly $1 billion from frontline RCMP officers and CBSA, which we had to put back and we did to protect our communities. Mr. Speaker, I hope that colleague will look at C-21 and vote for it. That's how we'll protect communities. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are struggling to afford housing in cities across Canada, but the government is still allowing illicit foreign funds to make things even worse. For 8 years, Chinese property developer Rung Kai-chen used wire transfers to launder tens of millions of dollars into Canadian banks. Canada has a broken system for tracking money laundering. The lack of action from this government only brings more hardship for everyday Canadians. When will the government help Canadians by cracking down on money laundering?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for shining a light on the need to make sure that we're putting resources into law enforcement so that we can root out money laundering, so that we can make sure that Canadians are not being exploited in new non-conventional platforms. And that is precisely what we're doing in Budget 2022, where, among other things, we're going to advance the important work that is being led by the Deputy Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, and my department when it comes to the creation of the Canada Financial Agency. Mr. Speaker, we'll make sure that Canadians are protected in the financial sector by taking these steps. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for North Island Powell River.
Thank you,
Canadians are struggling to pay their bills. Rising costs are making it nearly impossible for them to put food on their table. A recent survey found that people are struggling to afford basic groceries, things like bread and pasta. Over the weekend, again, gas costs went through the roof. While big box stores and oil and gas companies are making record profits, this government is not responding urgently to Canadians. Will this government help by doubling the GST tax credit and the child benefit to get hundreds of dollars back in Canadians' pockets?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government absolutely understands that affordability is a challenge for Canadian families. That's why this budget includes some very strong measures to help Canadians. A $500 payment for Canadians who are facing challenges with housing affordability. Dental care. I'm glad the member spoke about the CCB, which is indexed to inflation. And thanks to that, a single mother with 2 children will receive up to $13,666. And when it comes to seniors, the OAS is going up by 10%.
The Honourable Member for Madawaska-Restigouche.
Mr. Speaker, the COVID-19 pandemic has reiterated how crucial access to high-speed internet is as we live in an increasingly digital world. Canadians across the country need reliable high-speed internet to access services, supports, and opportunities. Can the Minister of Rural Economic Development update the House on the work being done to connect more rural households like mine in my riding of Madawaska-Restigouche?
The Honourable Minister for Rural Economic Development.
Je tiens à remercier mon honorable colleague de Madawaska-Restigouche de sa question.
I want to thank the Honourable colleague from Madawaska-Restigouche for the question, his unwavering advocacy and leadership in this file.
This past week, I was pleased to announce a federal investment of $55 million to connect 11,000 underserved households in New Brunswick to high-speed, affordable internet. Mr. Speaker, we are well underway to connect 98% of Canada by 2026. We know the future of rural Canada relies in affordable, reliable, high-speed internet, and well, we're underway. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Cumberland-Colchester.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the minister responsible please explain the mandate rule for unvaccinated travellers who wish to access federally regulated ferries such as Marine Atlantic?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Quick. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am proud to stand up and answer the question from my colleague, who has been great to collaborate with on the Health Committee. I don't have any data in front of me with respect to the ferries, but I'm happy to look it up for him. But I'd also like to say that right now Nova Scotians are 65.7% triple vaccinated, so there's still room to improve, and I hope my colleagues opposite will continue to consider to encourage their constituents to get a third dose, because that's the best way to protect us and our communities from COVID-19. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Cumberland-Colchester.
Well, Mr. Speaker, perhaps I should be on that side as a minister, because the rules are very easy to find. And what it says is that for essential travel under 24 hours on a Marine Atlantic ferry, that unvaccinated people can access ferries.
What?
So why is air travel different from marine travel ferry, Mr. Speaker? I do not know. There are no 24-hour flights inside of Canada, nor indeed around the world. Sadly, this indicates clearly that the ongoing mandates for air travel are only to be vindictive political punishment. When will this Prime Minister allow Canadians to return to pre-pandemic normal?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As my colleague knows, the travel vaccine mandates have been changing over the last 7 or 8 months. They change regularly. They're constantly reviewed, and they are all subject to looking at the various considerations. But I have to say, Mr. Speaker, in the last month alone, 1,700 Canadians died from COVID-19. It's important to recognize that as much as we want COVID-19 to be over, it's not just there yet.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
It's been months. The fiasco at our airports continue. Believe it or not, it's getting worse. More cancelled flights, longer lineups, more delays, lost economic activity, and an international reputation in jeopardy. The minister blames travellers and is telling us that things are just as bad in other countries. And despite all the chaos, experts are saying that dropping the restrictions and mandates must happen to clear the backlogs. The government is keeping these unjustified federal mandates in place till June 30th. If experts are already telling them to drop the virtue signaling, what happens on July 1st?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable colleague is right in one thing. We are seeing delays at airports across the entire world. We're seeing increased demand for travel, and we're seeing increased demand, appetite for people who want to travel, and the supply is trying to catch up to it, Mr. Speaker. However, we are not resting, Mr. Speaker, until we fix these delays. We've increased resources at CATSA, at CBSA, at airports. We are working with airports, we're working with airlines, we're working with all stakeholders, and Mr. Speaker, we will do everything we can to ensure that travelers have a smooth experience. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Thornhill.
The minister is playing catch-up by hiring a fraction of those they fired because of these mandates. The information disclosed by the government revealed that the government failed to spend nearly a quarter of CATSA's budget last year, despite record lineups, delays, and staffing shortages at our airports. We know that the Liberal vaccine mandate is keeping millions from flying. Are domestic travel restrictions being kept in place because the government doesn't want to deal with additional travelers, or is it just a way to punish Canadians that don't agree with them?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives going through an identity crisis. They don't know what policies they support and what policies they oppose. The only thing they know is they want to inflame anger and frustration, but have no idea to address the current challenges that we have. Mr. Speaker, our government is a responsible government. We are working with stakeholders, with airports, with airlines, with CATSA, with CBSA, and we are offering real, concrete solutions to address these issues, Mr. Speaker. Our government is on the job, while the Conservatives, all they can do is yell and scream with no ideas, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Therese de Blainville. Mr. Speaker, people are furious about the delays in getting their passports. Even for emergency services, they have to wait in line for hours before they're finally sent home. People are even camping out in front of the offices in order to ensure that they can get a spot in line. Passports aren't concert tickets. It's a public service for which we pay taxes. At the very least, will the government open its service centres on weekends for urgent cases free of charge? The Honourable Minister of Families. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my honourable colleague for that question. As we know, this is an unprecedented time where many Canadians want to travel at the same time. There are a number of passports that expired over the past 2 years. So we are now ensuring that Canadians can travel because we know that they want to do so. As I said already in the House, there are a number of offices in the country that are working evenings and also Saturdays, and we are ensuring that we can continue to offer this service to Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Therese de Blainville. Of course, the volume for applications is high. It's been 2 years since there was a travel ban. Anybody could have predicted this increase, anyone that is, except for the government that, once again, is not proactive but rather reactive. This crisis could have been avoided, but it's too late. Now, will the government fix it, including by temporarily opening free of charge offices on weekends for people who are leaving the country within 48 hours? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's very reassuring to hear the Bloc talk about Canadian passports. Nonetheless, we are ensuring that we can have more employees. 600 have already been hired since January. We're hiring 600 more, and we're going to have 600 more for Service Canada to ensure that we can respond to the needs of Canadians. We are continuing to change the process because we know that it is important for all Canadians throughout the country to have access to a passport. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, last week, the Parliamentary Budget Officer tabled an important study on the estimated costs of Bill C-13 on official languages. But, Mr. Speaker, the Treasury Board, Canadian Heritage, and the Minister of Immigration refused to provide the parliamentary budget officer with their projected expenditures for the implementation of that bill. We're talking about public funds. We're talking about money that has been taken from Canadians. It's a question of integrity. What are they trying to hide? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for the question, and we thank the Parliamentary Budget Officer for the work. The Official Languages Act is still before Parliament, and this legislation is being finalized. It's very important. In this minority parliament, we are eager to move forward with this bill, and we hope that all the parties in the House will work with us to ensure that it will get royal assent soon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Pont-Neuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, I can reassure my colleagues that, yes, we will work for the French language, we the Conservatives now, Mr. Speaker. Not a week goes by without discovering this government's contempt for the official languages. Last Thursday, it was the Parliamentary Budget Officer's turn to reveal that 3 departments refused to respond to his request for information to modernize the official languages. This is a first in terms of a non-response to this officer of the House of Commons. What excuses will the Prime Minister give us this time? The Honourable Minister of Official Languages. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Once again, I want to thank my colleague for the question. And as I mentioned, Mr. Speaker, Bill C-13 is currently before the House of Commons and before the committee, in fact. And committees have important work to do. Before the bill gets royal assent, we must do all the work needed to ensure that it can get royal assent. And after that, absolutely, we can give an update and do the implementation of the bill. The Honourable Member for Pont-Neuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, the question is simple. They're not talking about this. The Liberals put down $16 million to modernize the Official Languages Act. The Parliamentary Budget Officer is asking questions. This is an impartial officer of the House of Commons, and this government isn't able to respond. What are they hiding? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the question is simple. We have nothing to hide here. We're doing everything to protect and promote the beautiful French language, and that is why we are working with a bill that is ambitious. Mr. Speaker, I hope that my honourable colleague and all the parties in the House will work with us to ensure that the bill can pass as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Sudbury. Mr. Speaker, there is no relationship more important for our government than the one that we have with the Indigenous communities. Over the past few years, our government has settled numerous land claims with Indigenous communities, and this has been done in order to renew the nation-to-nation relationships based on community priorities and to right the wrongs of the past. These are important steps in our reconciliation. Can the minister inform the House of the recent settlement that our government reached with the Siksika First Nation, the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations? Since 1910, the Siksika Nation has been deprived of half of their land and their fair share of the wealth of that land. This is one of the most important claims, and it's one of the most significant claims in the country, and the community has waited over 112 years to address this historic injustice. That's why we're celebrating the signing of a $1.3 billion land claim settlement with the Siksika Nation. This is the beginning of our renewed relationship. We'll continue to work with the Siksika community to build a better future for future generations. Thank you.
Member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of International Trade needs to explain how a close personal friend wound up $17,000 richer after giving the minister a couple of days of media training. Documents tabled in this House show that in April 2020, the minister hired a PR firm run by a Liberal insider and CBC pundit, Amanda Alvaro, just a month after the COVID-19 pandemic began, at a time when many small businesses were struggling just to survive. The minister needs to come clean. Why did she award a lucrative contract to someone who describes her as a dear friend?
Minister for International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, here are the facts. This contract was
proactively disclosed to the public over 2 years ago. I was not involved in the decision to award it, and this contract was thoroughly reviewed by the departmental civil servants to comply with all procurement rules.
The honourable member for Tobique-Mactaquac.
Mr. Speaker, where I come from, wrong is still wrong. A good business pays well, but being a dear friend to a Liberal minister seems to pay even better. The latest example of this is the Minister of International Trade, who awarded her close personal friend a $17,000 media contract. It is unacceptable that the well-connected Liberal insiders continue to get sweetheart deals as everyday Canadians continue to struggle with the ever-rising cost of living. With no end in sight and no help from this NDP Liberal government. When did this minister start taking after the Prime Minister and thinking that she is above the law? Wrong is wrong, is it not?
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, all information related to this communications contract was proactively disclosed to the public over 2 years ago in a transparent manner. At the height of the pandemic, it was critical for small businesses, for workers, and for families to know what support was available to them. The results do speak for themselves. Over 5 million jobs were saved as a result of the wage subsidy. Over 900,000 small businesses received a loan through the CEBA loan. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Trade Minister really needs to brush up on her ethics rules. I'd like to remind her that ministers are forbidden from advancing the interests of their close personal friends. This contract is not in dispute. The problem is the minister awarded $17,000 to Amanda Alvaro, who describes the minister as a dear friend, and who also ran the minister's election campaign in 2017. So will the minister admit she broke ethics rules, and will she cooperate fully with the Ethics Commissioner's investigation?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to reiterate again that I was not involved in this decision to award the contract, and this contract was thoroughly reviewed by departmental civil servants to comply with all procurement rules. Of course, I will always collaborate and cooperate as required. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Pierrefonds-Dollard.
Mr. Speaker, last year, in the community of London, Ontario, a heinous Islamophobic attack took the lives of 4 members of the Afzal family and left a young son orphaned. Canadian Muslims are no strangers to acts of violence and hate. Le Centre Culturel Islamique
The Islamic Cultural Centre in Quebec.
Hate and bigotry have no place in Canada. Nous devons tous faire.
We all need to do our part to build an inclusive society.
Can the Minister of Housing, Diversity and Inclusion tell this House how our government is fighting Islamophobia following last year's National Summit?
Minister for Housing and Diversity and Inclusion.
Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question and his really important advocacy for this really important work. As we commemorate the 1-year anniversary of the London attack and the 5-year anniversary of the Quebec mosque shooting, we know that Islamophobia is a troubling and real fact for far too many Canadian Muslims in Canada. That is why our government is creating the new position of Special Representative to combat Islamophobia. And Mr. Speaker, just this morning, I announced on behalf of our government the fact that the call for applications for this really important role is now open. Through this step, we're combating hate and building a more inclusive society. Merci beaucoup.
The honourable member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the National Inquiry's final report on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls came out 3 years ago. And Indigenous leaders and survivors are calling this government's failure to act a national shame. Every call for justice they ignore is costing lives. For 3 years, my community has proposed a low-barrier, 24/7 safe space. In the last month alone, lives could have been saved if this government had listened. So I will ask again, will this government immediately fund a 24/7 low-barrier safe space in Winnipeg?
The Honourable Minister.
Clearly, Mr. Speaker, as a country, we continue to fail Indigenous women and children and LGBTQ people. The one-year anniversary is something not to look back on, despite our investments of billions of dollars into addressing this national tragedy, and pat ourselves on the back. This is something that we have to address as an entirety of society, whether it's us, whether it's the provinces, whether it's cities. We all have our part to do to invest and make sure that people are safe in this country. We'll continue to do it. On the federal side, we'll continue to work across the country to do exactly what the report has to do, which is to have a systemic approach to this ongoing national tragedy.
Bravo. The honourable member for Spadina Fort York.
Mr. Speaker, I recently met with the Secretary General of the Polish Red Cross. She indicated that their need right now is for money or food. They can no longer help Afghan refugees destined for Canada. There's also a global food shortage on the horizon, a product of Russia's blocking of Ukrainian grain exports. Chad's announced it is facing catastrophe. Other African nations will soon follow. Does the government have any plan to assist Poland and address the emerging food crisis? Will it move to increase the availability of Canadian wheat? Or, as with Afghanistan, is the government's head buried in the sand while people are facing death?
Minister for International Development.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has stepped up when it comes to food security crisis around the world. The impact that Putin's war in Ukraine has had on food security crisis in the world is actually very troubling. That's why Canada has stepped up. We've actually announced approximately over $70 million in the Sahel. Also announced funding for Afghanistan, Syria, the Horn of Africa. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I just visited 3 nations in Africa to talk about the food security crisis, and this was one of the main topics that we discussed on the G7, and we'll have more to say about this lately. Thank you.
That's all the time we have today for questions. C'est tout le temps que nous avons. If I can have your attention, please. Following discussions among representatives of all parties in the House, I understand that there is an agreement to observe a moment of silence in memory of the victims of the attack in London, Ontario, that happened a year ago. I now invite the honourable members to rise. I would like to make a statement concerning similarities between 2 bills that are currently before the House. Bill C-243, an act respecting the elimination of the use of forced labor and child labor in supply chains, standing in the name of the member for Thunder Bay Rainy River, received first reading on February 8th and was added to the order of precedence on February 9th, 2022. As for Bills S-211, an act to enact fighting against forced labor and child labor in supply chains act, and to amend the custom tariff standing in the name of the member for Scarborough-Gilwood, a message from the Senate was received on April 29, 2022, informing the House of its adoption. It then received first reading and was added to the order of precedence on May 3, 2022. Ces deux projets de loi visent.
These 2 bills have the same objective, that is, to asking a number of entities, including federal institutions, to report on measures that they take to prevent and mitigate the risk of usage of forced labor or child labor. in their supply chains. This case is characterized by an unusual confluence of circumstances. Usually, for private members' business, the subcommittee declares an affair unvotable when it is the same as one that has already been discussed in the priority list. That being said, as it is indicated in page 1144 of the second edition of Procedures and Use of the House of Commons, for a public bill first tabled in the Senate, the only reason it can be invoked to designate it unvotable is the fact that it is identical to a bill that was already voted upon in the House during the same Parliament. End of quote.
C-243 had not been voted on when the subcommittee on private members' business